Spider-Man No Way Home is officially in theaters, and it's time to dive in and rank all of these Spider-Man villains that have ever appeared in either Spider-Verse movies or even the other live-action Spider-Man movies. It's time to dive in. It's going to be a blast, but my most important thing that I love seeing is hearing your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, because we're doing a tier list today, so I want to hear what you would have placed these villains in and which tier it would be. I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on that, and also make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you're a giant Spider-Man fan, because I have tons of Spider-Man content coming up very soon, more than I've already done, and also I just love talking movies, and this is one of the best channels to come to if you also love talking movies. So again, hit that like and subscribe button, comment down below. Spider-Man No Way Home is now out. It's time to do this villain ranking. I've been so waiting to do this on a tier list. Let's have some fun and start with this villain ranking, and the first one I want to start with is one of the Spider-Verse villains, which is Scorpion, and we're going to put him in the F, starting as positive as can be, because Scorpion for me just really doesn't do anything in the Spider-Verse movie. Cool, he has some cool action moments, awesome, he has a unique design. For me though, every time I watch this movie, it's very forgettable, and in fact when I was looking at this picture, and I've seen Spider-Verse so many times, I looked and I'm like, oh yeah, he's from Spider-Verse. Cool. So let's move along and let's go to a Tobey Maguire villain next. And I'm feeling out. Let's do Venom. And I'm gonna put Venom in the D. Now I actually like the design of Venom, and I like the whole symbiote kind of stuff that merges with Peter Parker, not the bully Maguire, but the actual Peter Parker. I thought that actually worked somewhat. My issue with this Venom thing is I don't love Topher Grace in the role. I think Eddie Brock is just an annoying Patreon in here, and I just don't care to ever see Topher Grace as Venom. I like the design, I like what Sam Raimi attempted with his horror tones, but overall, Venom just doesn't work in here overall. There is a nice, again, the design bumps him up from being an F, but I just never care. Anytime I watch Spider-Man 3, as a kid, I love the Venom stuff. But now that we actually have Venom movies, I could care less. And also, just rewatching it now, it's literally my least favorite aspect of that entire movie. So, throw that out the door. I don't care. And, next, let's do an Andrew Garfield villain. And we're kind of going up. Let's do Lizard as a C. Now, I put Lizard as a C, and some of this might be because of Spider-Man No Way Home, which I do want to mention there might be some slight spoilers for. So, if you haven't seen the movie yet, do be warned. With Lizard, for me, if you would have told me beforehand, I love Kirk Connors as a character. Whether it's the shows, the comics, Tobey Maguire's movies, or of course even Andrew Garfield's, I love this character. And his transformation into Lizard, I think, is very painstakingly because he's just a scientist, a man who wants to heal himself. And I do like how the movie actually portrays this in both iterations. Now, for me, the reason the Lizard ends up as a C is because No Way Home brings back the Lizard in some cool capacity, and I do like how the Lizard can now talk. And there's some fun jokes that are made at the Lizard because there are things that I would actually say. Someone makes a joke that he looks like a dinosaur. I agree that he looks like a dinosaur. I wish he actually had the snout and looked like a lizard or a crocodile or whatever you wanted to say. But I do like that they touched on that a little bit. I like in No Way Home that he can discuss, and he's a little bit more moved along in the evolution of being the Lizard. I just wish that this character had more to do in No Way Home. And in The Amazing Spider-Man, I think he's a nice foe, but I don't love that he just wants to turn everyone into a lizard. So that's why I put him in the middle. He's fine. He's good for what he is, but he's not the best villain possible. I do love the whole entire action sequence in the high school, though, with the Lizard versus Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man. That is awesome. Of course, next, why don't we go with a Tom Holland villain? And the one I actually want to do first is Vulture. I want to talk about Vulture for the biggest reason being, I'm not a big fan of him in the comics. I've never been a big fan of the Vulture character, but man, oh man, in this movie, did he work wonders. Not just because of Michael Keaton's whole entire performance, but also because of the design and the unique aspect they brought in the twist in Homecoming of when he goes to pick up his date for Homecoming and Michael Keaton turns out to be her dad. That is one of the most intense moments in that car, and I love it, so that's why I'm going to put Michael Keaton in the A category. I love his portrayal as the Vulture. Really curious to see what they end up doing with him in Morbius. I'm assuming that's probably the end credit scene. I hope to God not, but we all know how Sony is. Next along, let's do a couple Spider-Verse characters. Next, we have Tombstone, an F character for me. Again, not enough development or touch to him. I do like Tombstone as a character in the comics, but just not enough for him in this film. And also adding in, so I'm not as negative with all the Spider-Verse characters, I want to do Liv, the Doc Ock from there. I'm going to put her in the B. A lot of this goes to Catherine Hahn's portrayal and the voice acting of her. I thought she was great, and even the animation they used for her. And plus the twist of her being a Doc Ock, did not see that coming because I didn't know there was a girl version of Doc Ock, which I thought was a great surprise. She's in the B though, because again, not so much development for this character, even though I wish there was a little bit more in there for her. And moving along to the next, let's do another homecoming villain, and the next one is going to be the Shocker, which I'm going to put in the F category. I like the character of the Shocker. I think the performances are fine in here. But overall, this is a comes in and comes out. It's a nice little Easter egg, nothing more than that. And I just never really care. Anytime I watch Homecoming, it's like, oh yeah, the Shocker was in there. And they make fun of that as well. So I love when Michael Keaton's like, oh, what are you, the Shocker? Calling yourself the Shocker?
The Shocker. I'm the Shocker. I shock people. What is this, pro wrestling?
Moving on next, let's do an Amazing Spider-Man one, and let's do the Rhino. So I'm going to put the Rhino in the D category. Now, I don't love this character. I actually think it's very baffling the way that Paul Giamatti portrays him, but it's fun for the most part. I love how entertaining and stupid the Rhino is, and maybe I'm putting him up above just because of how entertaining and stupid it can be. Because he's Paul Giamatti, the Rhino, the Russian Rhino. I hate the mech suit. I wish it was actually a Rhino. But again, on an entertaining level, good or bad, whatever you want to say it is, I find it to just be pure entertainment. In all honesty, this probably should be an F, but because of the entertainment-wise, it's a D for me. And that's where we're going to move over to the next one. And I actually want to do New Goblin from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 3. We're going to put this one in the C. For me, I put this one in the C because I like James Franco's portrayal in these movies, and I think the build-up to having a new Goblin in this element really works. But the way that I rate these is by biasness, by how I enjoy the movies, and overall just, in general, what I think about the character. And for me, while he's kind of a villain, he ends up becoming a hero by the end and dying. For me, in this instance, I don't love the design of New Goblin. It kind of looks like an X Games kind of sports suit, and I don't love it. I do love the glider, but everything other than that element, it just kind of seems a little bit superficial, and I would have liked a little bit of a better writing in that element. But in general, it's fine. It was a nice build-up. We knew it was coming, and I enjoy it for what it is. Moving on next, let's do Kingpin, and I'm actually going to put Kingpin from Spider-Verse also in the C category. Now, I put him in the C because I do like the family dynamic in here, and the family theme of Spider-Verse is very highly engaged. Everyone doesn't like losing people, but it happens, and we do want to move along in our lives and see how we can be. And Kingpin in this instance blames himself at the same way that all these Peter Parkers and Gwen Stacy and all of them blame themselves for the death of someone in their family or in their lives, a friend, a family, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever it might be. And I think Kingpin is the same way. And I put him in the C category because I don't love his design. I wish there was a little bit more development in diving into his character and his psychology of it all. But when you come down to Spider-Verse, there's so many different heroes to really touch into. So it's a little bit tough when you're kind of diving into all of them. You're like, okay, I'm going to touch into the hero capability, maybe not as much the villains, and that's where it kind of sours Kingpin and just a hair for me. The next one I do want to go into, though, and this one's going to be fun to talk about, is Sandman. So I'm going to put Sandman in the B category. I think he's one of the most underrated villains when it comes down to Spider-Man movies. And I love this character also in the comics, so there's a little bit of a biasness to that. My reasoning for his B is because Thomas Hayden Church's performance in here is incredible, and honestly I almost put him in the A category, but because of No Way Home I wanted more from him in there, and some of the writing for him I just didn't think was top tier in there. But I do love Thomas Hayden Church's performance, and he is easily the best part of Spider-Man 3, that entire storyline between Peter and, of course, Hayden Church's Sandman. Really dig him in there, plus the effects are really cool for him. Next, moving along, let's do the Amazing Spider-Man next, and we're going to do Dane DeHaan's New Goblin, and this one is going to be a D for me. Now, I just think this was completely rushed, and we should have waited one more movie to get this Goblin, but the reason that he is not an F and he is in at least the D category is because the death of Gwen Stacy that he is intertwined with. I thought that whole entire element was perfection, and I really loved how they were able to bring about that death in such an emotional way. For even though a movie that I enjoy, there are a lot of good and bad into there. I definitely think the good outweighs the bad. I just think when it comes down to all the villains in that movie, this is probably one of the weaker ones in there, right alongside Rhino. Which, I guess if we're going to finish out the Amazing Spider-Man, let's talk about Electro, who I'm actually going to put in the B category this time. Now, if you would have asked me before I saw No Way Home, C or D probably for this, but the way that Jamie Foxx brings about this portrayal and actually gives a lot more emotion and continues Max Dillon's story in No Way Home is actually a really emotional avenue that I wasn't expecting in seeing how Max Dillon does. He has certain conversational pieces that do tie back in that are fun and witty, but also just emotional to see how he is feeling in his life and where he is now. It's a great evolution for this character, and I'm really happy Jamie Foxx got that because it makes him one of the more memorable villains in Spider-Man lore now. Moving along, let's finish out Spider-Verse with the Prowler. The Prowler is also going to be a B villain. A lot of that going because of the emotional avenue of family and the themes of that all, and the way that No Way Home, Spider-Verse handles that with all the thematics of Miles losing his uncle. The twist in there, I think as comic fans, we all knew was coming, but for people who didn't know, it probably blew their mind away. Plus, the score with the way they used the Prowler was very scary. I really love the Prowler, and I think there's a lot of fun elements to him, and I'm really excited to see maybe if the MCU ever decides to bring the Prowler in for them. Of course, now we have 3 villains left to rank, and before we get any further, guys, if you guys are new here and you love talking movies just as much as I do, make sure again to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies over here on a daily basis, and also leave a comment on what your ranking is of all the villains. If you don't want to leave a full ranking, let me know who your favorite ones are down there. But to kind of cap this all off, let's go with Doc Ock next, which Doc Ock, Alfred Molina, is going to go in the A category. Performance, A+. Design, amazing. Love what Sam Raimi was able to do with Spider-Man 2, arguably one of the best comic book movies of all time. The train sequence alone is one of my favorite comic book action sequences of all time as well. For me, though, this kind of teeters into, is he an actual villain or is he an actual hero? And No Way Home kind of plays around with that idea, and he very much is more of a hero in No Way Home than he is a villain. And I'm happy they continued that arc, but for me, I put him in the A category just because I wanted a little bit more of him in No Way Home. And I do feel like if we're just basing it off Spider-Man 2, S villain for sure. But No Way Home, I do think, pulled it just a back. Even though Alfred Molina was great, I wanted more of him. And you guys will probably disagree with me. That is fine. The next one I want to go with, though, is Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe. Incredible. Easily an S ranking. One of the best villains that has ever come into comic book lore, and a lot of that goes because of Dafoe's performance. He's not just nightmarishly scary in the original Spider-Man, he's incredible in No Way Home, and arguably makes for one of the best MCU villains yet. It's crazy because now he's in that universe and this universe, and we can rank him in technically both ways, but I love what Dafoe was able to do with Green Goblin in the MCU, and really much scaring the shit out of Tom Holland and making big ramifications for that entire character. Dafoe has never been better, and it reminds you of why he's one of the best actors that has ever lived.
And because I know someone will say, yes, this tier list I picked, I forgot him. He would be in the F category, this version of Green Goblin.
But, guys, we got one last villain to rank, and that's Mysterio. And, like I said, I base this entire ranking off biasness, my personal thoughts, the movie, and some of you guys will heavily disagree with me on this, but I'm going to put Mysterio in the S ranking. Sorry. Get the pitchforks and everything ready. Mysterio is one of my favorite villains in all of comic book lore, but also from Spider-Man. He's my favorite Spider-Man villain, and the way I never thought they would be able to bring him to life into the MCU, and they did it in such spades. His action sequences are incredible. His moment from moment is amazing. Jake Gyllenhaal is top-notch, and overall, I was so thoroughly impressed with how Mysterio really much is portrayed in this movie. He's one of the best villains out there, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal as well as one of my favorite actors working, so he plays this role to such an entertaining and, again, nightmarishly stressful performance that I love. I don't love that he's a Tony Stark, that's why he's pissed, but I put that aside on my full biasness because I love Mysterio, and that's why I left it for last, so we can start raising the pitchforks now. Again, my wholeheartedly opinion, everyone's going to have different ones, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. So again, leave a comment on your guys' ranking. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and of course, until next time, stay classy.